It turns out, to be blunt, that capitalism as a system is able to produce remarkable wealth, no question. Unfortunately, it is equally capable to produce and reproduce remarkable poverty. Bottom line, it is a system that reproduces inequality. Well, then why didn't those efforts at redistribution, progressive taxation, welfare systems of one kind or another, why didn't they work? And here's the answer, and it's very important. We have a system which positions the rich in such a way that they can quite easily and quite regularly evade, avoid, minimize, or altogether escape the redistribution, to negate it, to make sure it doesn't last, even if you get it, and to block it most of the time. I'll give you an example. There was an effort starting in the 1930s to have a minimum wage, to not allow wages to go below some level set by the government so that you wouldn't create poor people, which capitalists had been doing by paying very low wages. The logic here isn't complicated. But what happened was there were ways that businesses got around paying minimum wages. They hid and paid less. They used immigrants who could not defend themselves and paid them less because immigrants were often afraid to complain because their status as immigrants made them nervous. Or capitalists went to other countries, didn't they, where they could get away with paying below the minimum established here. Lots of strategies that the people who run the businesses could use to get around the efforts at redistribution. Bottom line, if you allow businesses to be run by a small number of people, you can't really be surprised that they, the ones who run it, the owner, the board of directors, the major shareholders, those people, always a small minority of every capitalist business, because that's how capitalist businesses are organized. They, of course, to no one's surprise, benefit themselves first and foremost. If the company is doing well, they give themselves the big dividends as shareholders, the big pay packages as top executives, the benefits that come to the owner of a business. And if the business doesn't do real well, then they fire all of us and close the business down. Yeah, you notice something. The costs of a failure are borne by all the rest of us. The bulk of the benefits of a success are taken by the people who own and run the business. So if you don't change that, then you're giving them, as the leaders of the business, as the people who have the money in their hands, who grab the profits, you give them the wherewithal to escape and to undo whatever efforts at redistribution can be imposed on this system, usually by pressure from below. Businesses take a portion of their profits, and rather than keeping them for themselves, they use them to buy the political system. Why? To make sure that the redistributions don't go very far. Using my same example, when the working class was able to get a minimum wage, the business community responded by not getting the politicians to raise the minimum wage along with rising prices. So as prices went up over the years, the value of the minimum wage went down unless the politicians lifted it, which they haven't done. For example, the minimum wage today in the United States, $7.25 an hour, federal minimum wage, was last increased in 2009. That's when it went to $7.25 an hour. We've had inflation, rising prices every year since 2009, but the politicians, controlled by the donations that come from the, rich people sitting at the top of capitalist businesses, they haven't raised the minimum wage. And so, in effect, they nullified what it's about.